What's up, brother? It's your boy, Mike Muse. First episode of the Mike Muse Show. I have a favorite, a returning guest. I know I shouldn't call my guests favorites and have favorites. I guess that's probably bad of me. I guess I love all my guests. But I thoroughly enjoyed talking to my guest the last time. We had a great conversation. We also had a good conversation just right before we came on right now. He gave me a little bit of therapy. Thank you for that, Coach Domingo. That was not in your job description.
I do what I need to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented, the multi-hyphenated, I believe W Magazine just dubbed him "The Summer Is His." So without further ado, Mr. Coleman Domingo is back again. The Mike Muse Show. How you feeling, brother?
Good. I'm feeling real good, Mike Muse. I'm feeling good today. It's good.
I love it. I love the smile. What is going on? What is the inspiration behind the smile? Because that smile is genuine and authentic.
Thanks, man. You know what I just think I've always believed it's an act of revolution, a smile, because there's so many reasons that can make this man just sort of crawl into a hole. But I know that every morning I make a conscious effort to smile, to enjoy, to live in gratitude, to, make sure that my life is purposeful. And really, I'm enjoying everything that I'm doing. So I think that's where the smile comes from. I'm like, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. I mean, Kobe, it's kind of hard when people dig in the summer is yours not to smile, right?
You know what? It's hard not to smile. And I'll own it too, because it's good. Because what's beautiful is I've been able to sort of usher in, going back to theaters again with Zola, and at the beginning of the summer, and now the end of the summer with Candyman. And both of these films, they're entertaining, but they're also they're really about really unpacking a lot of things that we've been dealing with and unearthing for the past few years, especially in the past few years, about representation, about appropriation, about culture and Blackness and all that. They're funny, they're dark, they're weird, and both have phenomenal female filmmakers. And I'm happy to be in the middle of all that. And I have another film, God Committee, that was sort of in the middle of the summer. Yes, so
that's why the summer is yours. I'm glad you leaned into owning that narrative that you didn't create, that was created for you. Because oftentimes I'm always reminding of that quote from Marianne Williamson, where she talks about it's not the darkness that we're afraid of, it's actually our light. And far too often we dim our own light to make others feel comfortable around us. And then it says, when you shine your light, you actually give people permission to do the same. Right. And who are we not to be great and to be amazing and to be dynamic. Right. And for me, that actually healed me at a time where I used to dim my light. So I want others to feel comfortable around me. But as you said, your smile is an act of revolution. Not dimming your light is equally an act of revolution.
Well, because people, as you know, Mike, people want, and I don't know what that is in human nature, where if they're feeling ill or not well, they don't want you to shine and feel in all your wellness, all your light. And so that's why you have to actively sort of like go against it, because I know that that's not my true nature, and that's not that other person's true nature. I remember this one brother, I was just talking about this recently, because it made me remember when I got my first Broadway show, when I used to I would pull open this heavy stage door and walk in there. Apparently I walked in, chest puffed out, wearing something cool, feeling good. And then this one brother, he said, why do you do that? I said, what do you mean? He said, what's all that? And I didn't know what he meant. And it bothered me. I was like, what am I doing? Am I coming in some kind of way that I wasn't aware of? And I realized it sort of just bothered him that I was coming in with so much gratitude, joy, purpose for being there. And I was like, and I had to go back to, who said this? Maya Angelou, I believe. She said something like, when you walk in there, you don't walk in there alone. I'm walking in there. He didn't see that I had ancestors on either side, all these people that struggled and moved mountains for me to get here, who loved hard enough, laughed hard enough. I'm like, yo, I'm coming with a gang of folks, and we are all stepping into this because we know it's a great, great moment for us. So I decided since then, I was like, no, I can't let that be my narrative. I've got to constantly find that well within me of constantly pouring all the love and heart. And I'm like, he'll see it someday, hopefully. Or if he doesn't, too bad for him.
Well, he's saying it right now. And audience, if you are listening, you can't see it. So I encourage you to go to YouTube and watch this video. For those of you watching us on YouTube right now, you can see Coleman brought it today. Brother has 3 buttons down, got the gold jewelry, kind of popping, the fashion is hitting. If you recall, audience, the last time I had Coleman, I broke down his entire bookshelf and his book collection and his
You did.
And his minimalism with his art that he had within his home. So he let me down with the bookshelf. I was hoping you'd been in that same spot.
I'll let you know, it's not even that. You know what it is? This is I'm in my apartment in Austin because I'm here shooting and I'm not home in LA. And this is actually my fridge, which is why.
Oh snap! No, I could do a whole social construct with what's inside your refrigerator, but I won't. You have to tune in to his bottomless brunch, folks, to tune in to see what he's cooking and what he has going up. See, I did multi-promotion for you, brother. I got you.
I love it. Thank you, Mike.
You let me down though, man. I was hoping to do a whole minimalism deconstruction of what the next quarter of your home will be. But you're here to talk Candyman. You're not here to give me therapy. I love where we went with the revolutionary act of Black male joy and happiness, and the revolutionary act of not dimming the light. Hopefully that will be needed on this Sunday as people are listening to us, to always remember the revolutionary act can be with all of us, which is through your films. This film for me was dark. This film was scary, as I mentioned to you off air, and F it, audience, it's all good. I'm an empath. I'm really susceptible to energy. And so I typically tend not to watch horror films. And NBC, I'm going to get them. They sent the screen to me so late, I had no choice but to watch that night. And I was terrified. It was a lot of start and stopping. But I'm just curious for you, why do you think now the significance of Candyman is more prevalent today? And audience, for those who haven't seen it yet, you will have the opportunity to see it. It's really rooted, Jordan Peele does some whole interesting things. It's really rooted in Cabrini Green projects. And Coleman, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan. And my frat brothers actually did a whole documentary on the Cabrini Green. So I'm very familiar with the Cabrini Green. I've actually talked about it before on my show. Why is it significant that Candyman is now in the backdrop of everything that we're seeing with racial reckonings, unrest, constructs, but then also two, in the backdrop of the historical nature of Cabrini Green?
I think you just really sort of laid it out very clearly, that it really is, it's a horror film, but there's so much social commentary to unpack about exactly who we are, the moment that we're in, the moments that we've been in. It's unpacking, for me, who is the monster and who creates the monster being usually Black men and Black women as well. And also it's unpacking Black trauma. My character in particular, William Burke, holds a lot of Black trauma from his childhood, from feeling that he, maybe not having agency in the world, possibly feeling guilty, responsible, you name it. And then it's also dealing with mental health and how we deal with mental health and mental issues. It's also dealing with, people taking over our neighborhoods and not understanding all that is there. And I think that's what my character in particular is really holding on to. Is like, okay, you want to gentrify this neighborhood. You can't just have our location. You got to take everything with it. And that means you have to unpack our trauma as well. And he's committed to that. So I think that there's so much unpacking to do, all through the lens of horror, which is, and I think it's kind of brilliant, actually. I had a conversation with Jordan Peele when we were on set. We were talking about, he was like, Coleman, have you ever written horror? I said, no, not really. I write sort of family stories. And he says, I think that there's something interesting about horror and how you can tell our stories, especially right now. And I think the common thing that we both discuss is the fact that who is living in a horror movie 100% of the time in America? Black people. Black men in particular, I think. I know for sure that every conscious decision that I make during the day is about making sure that I'm safe and I'm okay. Crossing the street, looking away. It's like, you can't, I feel like it's really unpacking what really just like, because it's like, who's created this monster of these Black men and why are we constantly attacked? And unpacking that, looking at art and criticism, how Black people's work is taken in the world and how it's, codified. It's a lot. When I tell you, it's like a big old record album, this film, and you're going to take away the song that you need. Yeah. I can say a lot. I can go on and on and on, but I won't, because I want people to actually go check it out and see for themselves. They're going to be entertained. They're going to gasp. They're going to laugh. And they're also going to really think a little differently, I think. It's a film that's meant to have some conversations after. There's really a wonderful talk back, and I think it'll be available online, possibly at the theaters. It's a talk back that I lead with some Black academics and entertainers, and we really unpack the themes of Candyman, which I think there is a coda to it, to the film.
Damn, Coleman. I mean, I've yet to get the invite to the Bottomless Brunch. I don't get invited to the
I'm gonna invite you. I'm gonna invite you now.
conversation.
Listen,
just keep playing me, brother, for the brunch. I don't get invited to the academic talks. Like, how do you view me, Coleman? We need to unpack how you view me. I just feel so like slighted, bro. Like, what's
Mike, maybe
on,
that, Mike, maybe what you recognize. I like our one-on-one. Maybe I don't want to share you with people. I like our brotherhood and how we just do it one-on-one.
You have a future in politics, brother. This film doesn't work out for you. You have a film in politics. Way to switch the narrative on me. You just illuminated something really brilliant. I never thought about it. Horror is the Black experience. Because also too, for me, the repetitive theme of this is violence. And the cycle of violence. The cycle of violence that can be inward and internal is also true, the outside forces of violence. But then you get into this vicious cycle of the outside violence equals internal violence, which then equals outside violence. And so you never get off of this wheel.
He says, my character even says, he said, it's a stain. It's a stain that's there. And no matter how many times you try to scrub it out, it's still there. It's still there. It's a deep, deep stain of trauma that is generational. And that's what we need to
And then even the project, how the project was created and the airport was created and Cabrini Greens. And then really when they destroyed Cabrini Greens, the violence still existed. It was just displaced. Energy is never created or destroyed. So it got displaced to the outward areas of Chicago, but the displacement still caused even more uprising because the healing of violence was never ever sought for, right? Because it wasn't recognized as a cyclical
that's America.
Cycle.
That's America, plain and simple. We have amnesia. Especially when it comes to our own trauma, that no one really wants to deal with it. They'd rather just hop, skip, jump over it. And which is why I think it's really important, especially at this time, after our year of racial reckoning, that we don't forget the work that we have started, that was already started way before that year of racial reckoning, that it still continues. And it continues with our art, it continues with the way we put this art out there, the way we have conversations around it. That's what's going to be important. So that's what I'm looking forward to in this moment, which is why I feel like I'm very proud to, if I'm part of the folks who sort of own the summer, that's very important to me, that we're in conversation in that way when it comes to these themes in our films. So that's why I feel particularly very proud of those statements.
You mentioned art a few times. You seem to, that's on your subconscious here. I'm curious about, and my audience knows that for me, art is a reflection of society. Art holds a mirror up, no pun intended, with Candyman to what America is and what we're going through. I want to tie that in before I jump to the conversation I was having with Franklin Sermons, who's the director of Perez Art Museum, who's a dear friend of mine, where we were talking about the space of art and Black art in particular. There was a moment in the film audience, I'm not giving anything away, but Coleman, while we're here, where there was a critic that was there who very passingly and smudgely dismissed the work of Black artists and what we're seeing in the landscape. And I think that is so relevant in terms of how society deals with Black trauma, right? Like, get over it.
Of course. But also she was looking at it. What I love, what it truly impacts is that her lens was absolutely a white lens. It wasn't a lens that she didn't understand. She may be able to connect with Black art in some way, but she is not she thinks that she's the authority. And I think the film is going to help her recognize that she is not actually. That, you know what I mean? That's a conversation I'm always having. And just like, who is, but also just unpacking who can criticize Black art. If you truly, it's like there's a certain level of you can criticize it from the outside, but if you feel like, oh, it's not relevant because you have a narrow lens of what Black art is, no one wins actually. It's a system that we need to smash a huge sledgehammer to.
Well, why do you think visual art was a vehicle to tell this story?
Well, I think that because it's even more impactful. I think sometimes especially, let's say, my character, William Burke, when he was young, he uses puppets. And I thought that there's something really special about that and graceful about not showing, he was showing all this tragedy and horror through puppetry, which is sort of this childlike form. But he's really showing these atrocious things that have happened to us and to these men in history. And what I love is that you, in our film, you don't see, there's no violence porn against Black bodies, which is quite rare. I think anytime you deal with something that has to do with tragedy of Black people, whether it's slavery, and it's like that's on that screen in such a pornographic way. And I know personally I'm tired of it. And I think it actually it desensitizes you because you're like, oh, I know that exists. I know that was horrible. But what can get you to think bigger, think differently, and actually really challenge the way you feel about it? You know, I think we've all been desensitized by violence, especially when, you know, we've witnessed men being killed in the streets. We've all witnessed, you know, and now it's like, well, how do we now make it even more, get into your psyche and get into the analytics of your mind and look at the whole system in every single way? I think it's a more interesting way through the narrative art. You know, art can be even more profound and hit you in a way and help you connect deeper. So it's not just outside and something that happened. I'm talking to white folks. It's not something that happened outside of you. You can actually make sense and process it on the inside of you through art and interpretation. And I think that's the importance of art and why it's through the lens of artists in our film.
I love how you said that, because also too, art eases the palate and cleanses the palate so that it's not so violently in your face, although it can be, but it allows of you to interpret it as you will, which is why in the beginning I love the conversation that the couple was having about the art being so literal versus giving the interpretation for the viewer to come to their own conclusion of what this means. And I love the character arc's evolution as an artist from being literal to being more interpretive. And you saw his artwork evolve and change. And I love how you brought in puppeteering, you know, into the space, right? Like that is just a way of stripping in the way that in the use of Black and white, stripping color, but then really getting to the energy of violence and what violence is.
Absolutely. I mean, you watch children when they're playing with their dolls and things like that, and you're like, oh, they're acting out things that they don't even know deeply how traumatic that is. But they're playing around with these violent acts and things like that. And you're like, that's horrific that they actually are interpreting this, but they don't even know the stain that it's caused on them already, you know?
I had a great conversation with Robert Battle of Alvin Ailey, and he and I were talking about revolutionary acts. And I'm curious as we wrap, because I have to end at some point, because we'll be talking all day. He had an interesting idea about revolutionary acts, and I talked to him about the balance that Black creators have, no matter what space or medium that you're in. This idea of doing things for the art, but then doing things in the sense of moderating discourse of what is happening through social constructs, through Blackness and the Black experience. And so he was saying that they have to wrestle with that on a daily with how they present and set their shows. But he concluded the mere fact of Black bodies on the stage is a revolutionary act in of itself, right? And so sometimes it has to be. So I'm curious for you as an actor who comes from the stage, who does the big Hollywood things, an incredible thespian, how do you look at that and look at that statement? And how do you look at that statement through the lens of your own career trajectory, to which you know I'm obsessed with?
Well, thanks, Mike. That's a really poignant question. And I know for sure, if I don't know anything else, I do know that part of my revolutionary act as an artist is to make sure that my work doesn't suffer tropes that have been set up for me before I even walked in the door, you know, about who I am, about who people from the inner city are, who Black men are. I think I always approach from a place of love, first and foremost, which is the greatest revolution, is love. And so I make sure that the Black men that I build and create, they're not suffering stereotypes and tropes which are easy. They're easy. People want that. It's palatable. You understand it. You know what it is. I've never been interested in that. And it's been a longer road for me, but it's a road well-traveled and a road that I'm very proud of, because when I look at my body of work and the things that I've been attached to, whether it's as actor, director, writer, producer, you name it, I know that it's very conscious. And I think everything is very intentional. You know what I mean? Even the way, like we talked about clothing as well, even the way I dress, it's very intentional. Everything has an intention and everything is an active revolution, because we know the way the world views us and views our art already before we even walk in the door. I have an understanding of that. So I'm not remiss in thinking that, like, you know, people, oh, they're going to see you just as the artist in the work. No. You already have an idea of who I am. Now it's time for me to define who I am. At every moment is an opportunity. Every single moment, the way we tell our story, because for years our story was not told by us, and I know that is part of the revolution. You just have to get on top of it. You get on top of it before it gets on top of you.
Coleman, I can't thank you for demonstrating.
I'll leave with a little humor.
It's sometimes I have to let something just be as is, right? Like
that's what it is.
I just want to unpack the social construct of that statement altogether. Coleman, Domingo, I just want to just thank you for demonstrating literally today, and even for me, how revolutionary acts can come in so many different forms. I'm always talking about how activism looks different and can be different. We have to accept it as different. I never thought about it from a separation of revolutionary acts. And I do believe revolutionary acts are different from activism. So thank you for letting us know that what revolutionary acts can look like. You know, it can look like you, it can look like a three unbuttoned shirt with gold chains, as well as it can look like the type of characters that you choose to play and make, and the whole nine, how you show up. So thank you for demonstrating that for us today. How can people see Candyman? Like I've seen, how can they see them?
They can get ready to go out to the movie theaters on August 27th and get that whole life. And then I think, you know, maybe a month later or so it'll be on demand or something. But I think it's a film to be seen in the theaters, which is why we waited so long for it to come out. So go to the theaters safely and take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and get out there.
Coleman Long, cheers to you for owning the summer, man. I've had a great summer because of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mike.
Coleman, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our show. It's been amazing talking to Congresswoman Barbara Lee and the dynamic, talking about revolutionary. Then ending it with Coleman Domingo. How did I get this lucky having this type of career? But until next time, folks, peace.